Hello, good morning. My name is David Mokaya, and today I'll be taking you through my assessment tool on the challenges I did. And my examples and case scenarios were done in the construction industry using the Burj Khalifa as a building in Dubai that was constructed a while ago. And to begin with, onto my introduction. The challenges encountered in Burj Khalifa as I picked them are some of the most commonly encountered challenges statistically in the project management cycle or in many projects that have been implemented. And in as such, most of these challenges happen during the implementation phase, right from initiation to closure. Implementation accounts for 50 to 60% of most of the project management challenges that occur in a project while it's running. And in as such, in order to avoid all this or many as they come through the project cycle, it's better to have a plan that is very rigid and flexible because some of them just pop up. You might have a very good plan, but sometimes they do happen on the ground. And in order as such, when you have a plan that has already covered most of the challenges that do happen in similar projects and have even contingencies in place and even just be rigid or flexible to adjust it in such a way the corrective measures do not affect the final project as it's running. It's easier that way rather than tackling them as they come in the execution phase. As a common law said by Fitzgerald said before, failing to plan is planning to fail, and therefore it's better when you have a planned risk management strategy or planned way to reduce these challenges as the project runs. To begin with, some of the challenges I'll be covering in this assessment are scope creep, resource management, risk management, and on to the last one that will be stakeholder analysis as some of the most viewed. When we come onto the scope creep, you see that the height of Burj Khalifa is 828 meters. Initially on the structural drawing, it was 808 meters. And the clients are requested, is it possible to move it from 808 to 828 meters? And in a such, when always this happens, customers are always right because you have to deliver to the specifications of the customers. The structural engineers and the people, the team had to come down and look at how is it possible to implement such. And in a such, they had to run again simulation models using the Monte Carlo analysis. Monte Carlo analysis is a model that is more of a predictive probabilistic analysis using previous data of projects that have been done in the same nature. But remember, this is a project that was never done before. It has never been any similar. It's the tallest new one of its kind. So they had to predict using models that at least had come close to it and maybe predict by extrapolating it on the software to see any outliers in risks that will pop up. And in as such, that is how they were able to outline all the possible challenges and how to estimate the costs and all other scope creep scenarios that will occur while the project is running. And so they had to revisit the structural drawings in as such. After doing all this, they had to revisit all the plans they had and put contingency plans in place in order to curb the challenge of scope creep. On to the next one, there was the risk management. How would they have handled all the risks that will have come? Because the building in itself has never been done before. So even if you're going by an ISO standard set or maybe by experience judgment or expert judgment, they have never done it. So most of it was being done on predictions and maybe on structural drawings that was done. Like you can't know what would have happened in there. So they had a very big risk register indicating all the possible risks that would have happened through the running of the project. And in as such, they had a prioritization of all these risks in a way they would at least know the one with the greatest impact as they move down, and they know how to mitigate each and every other risk, because it was again very hard to, it was unquantifiable, and even the amount of data that was there to qualify it also, the qualitative and quantitative data was not sufficient. So they were collecting it and recording it, most of it as it was running. It was more of an agile approach because the methods used to do it was Scrum in some way, because they were doing it stage by stage and analyzing, are we doing it in the right way? Has anything happened so far? And in as such, risks were able to be maintained. And in advanced risk management softwares were also used, and even expert judgment in the same, to also at least help reduce the impacts of these risks if at all they happened at some stages. And on to my next challenge, and there will be stakeholder management. And under stakeholder management, this will be one of the hardest tasks in project management. And for the Burj Khalifa, they use the stakeholder analysis matrix analysis table, because if you look at this project, you will wonder, there were so many stakeholders involved in such. There was the Dubai government, there was the compliance agencies, there were the people who could finally come and enjoy it, there was the project team itself, there was the client and sponsors themselves. In order to put them in the right quadrants and know how to set, whom do I satisfy, whom do I monitor closely, whom do I just keep informed. In all as such, they had to do a great analysis, because in order to comply with the rules, this is not a project that will have run. They don't know the kind of schedule it would have taken in as it was set, because of the many changes that were happening and dynamic runs that were being done while the project was being implemented. So like they had to comply with the agencies, and in as such, since they were using an agile approach, that is, we are not doing it at once, we are doing it in stages, they had to comply with the environmental impact assessment strategies put in Dubai. They had to comply with the government rules and regulations on constructions, and at the same time still try to maintain the ISO standards as set and run within the country. And by the same time, they also had to ensure that the client, we are right on track, everything is in place, everything is running well, there's nothing that is going wrong. And be sure that your project will be implemented in due time and everything is on course. They had also to know how to report it to the owners. They also had to know how to tell the public on how everything will be by the end of the project as it is finished. So they had to do a detailed stakeholder management plan and even segmentation. In order to prevent early stakeholder analysis, tailored communication strategies were put in place, and even reporting systems that were done from time to time in order to make sure everything happens well. And finally, on to my last challenge. This is resource allocation and scheduling. In a search for resource allocation, it was very hard to get all the resources they needed for a specific phase or stage at once. For instance, if I give a scenario, the crane operators, expert operators of cranes, they ran short of crane operators, especially for those that will run cranes in high altitudes. So for such, they again used the agile approach, you see, favored them in a big way, and the Scrum methods, because in the small ways they were conducting on small phase, the limited number of crane operators would fit very well into some sections. And they also procured a school to train more crane operators, people who had at least little experience, maybe say 3 to 5 years of crane operations. And they brought in experts to train more and more so that they could at least have the numbers go up and up. And also in as such, they will still be aware of the possible risks of taking people who have not been in the industry of crane operations for long. So they at least had it in a way they counter any risks that would happen, that if it happened, what will we do? And in as such, at least they were able to run every phase bit by bit until they were able to finish it in the time they had scheduled it for. So some of the specific challenges was shortage of specialized skills like the crane operators, as I had mentioned, and as the solutions for such, they had to do resource levelings, partnerships for trainings and such to enable more people and more skills to be obtained. And in as a measure to prevent any risks that will occur, detailed resource planning was done, dynamic scheduling systems were used, and more of it was just Scrum and Agile project management strategies that were used to ensure that everything fell in place as it should have. And in conclusion to this, I'll say is, in order to minimize most of these challenges, it's always good to review in the planning stage, consult with experts, do everything that can be done to curb it at the planning stage so that any eventuality that occurs in the implementation, there is a contemporary plan or some conformance measure that was put in place for correction or either for compliance in order to reduce the impacts that will have happened during the execution phase. Thank you.